Now, for more on China's auto market, I'm joined by Lauren Fix, live from Buffalo, New York. She's an automotive expert known as the Car Coach. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back.
So let's start with a look at what it means for domestic and international automakers if China is going to see this first contraction of its auto market in 7 years.
Well, this is a huge impact. Remember, we've got a tariff situation going on right now where the U.S. is planning on putting a tariff on Chinese goods, which includes cars and car components. And I think that's part of the impact of that. And other manufacturers are deciding if we're not going to make it here in-house, being in China, then we're going to have to look at, what's coming in, what's going out. Part of the things you're seeing is an investment in China, such as BMW spending $4 billion in order to invest in their plant in China, because they know if they want to sell in that country, they better be producing product in that country, which is very smart.
Now, of course, you mentioned this issue between China and the U.S. and its tariff wars. But what are some of the other main factors that are pushing down sales in China?
Well, also you have to remember that there's the factor of production. I know the Made in China plan for 2025, is a big push to get people into cars. But you also have to remember that besides the fact of technology, Chinese owners tend to want to purchase vehicles from their own country, and I understand that, but also getting product into that country, and there's a lot of production issues as well. Mind you, China is very strong on wanting to go all electric, and they are building power plants in order to support that effort. So there's a lot of things going on at the same time, and if the economy is not good because sales to the U.S. are lessened, it impacts every single factor of the Chinese economy, and part of that is automotive.
And for those who aren't familiar, the Made in China 2025 plan is China's role in really upgrading its economy. And part of that includes having this aim to have domestic car makers sell 3 million electric vehicles a year, making up about 80% of total domestic sales. So let's talk about the role of electric cars. What sort of impact is that having on China's overall auto industry right now?
Well, actually, that's very interesting, because in order to have electric cars for the mass of consumers to own, you need to have a power grid. So they've been building nuclear power plants, which is also very smart, where other countries choose not to go that route. Also, a very wise move on China's part is to own all the lithium and cobalt mines, because that's what batteries have in order to charge, including neodymium. These are rare earth minerals, and since they own those mines, they're basically controlling the battery supply for electric vehicles on a global basis, which is also a very wise move from their position. Electric vehicles do have some other issues besides the fact charging. We still don't know if there's going to be a health impact down the road when those batteries have gone from cradle to grave. We're finding that the impact on carbon dioxide is substantially more than that of combustion vehicles. So we're going to see some big changes, some enlightenment maybe by consumers and by governments, that we're seeing about 74% higher increase in carbon dioxide emissions if you're looking at total cost to produce those batteries, and then of course the end usage of them, where are they going to go. So I think these are factors that need to be addressed in the near future, and China seems to be very aggressive in getting this electric battery vehicles, the EVs, out there, and they are right now in the lead.
Now, let's also look at China's opening up to foreign investors. We mentioned BMW, and they've taken a controlling stake in its joint Chinese venture due to Beijing relaxing its joint ownership rules in the auto industry. How significant is this development?
That is quite significant. BMW made an aggressive move by saying if we want to sell these products, in other words, they're electric vehicles in the country, and people do like BMW brands. They're very premium quality, like you were discussing in your package about Porsche, same type of thing. These electric vehicles, in order to be sold, they're going to have to make a strong investment in China. When it comes to Tesla, it's a different story. He's only leased the land, and he's 2 to 4 years out from even having a factory together, and still needs an additional $4 billion. So I think that he's going to get outpaced in China. Companies like BYD and other companies that are in China will take the lead in producing electric vehicles. But I see Ford and GM also investing quite heavily, as well as other manufacturers, Volkswagen, in China, and they have to do that in order to sell in that country, to give people jobs. They're going to want to buy the brands of the vehicles they build. That's how we built the U.S. market, and that's how I see the Chinese market following suit.
So just looking ahead, given the contraction that we're seeing now and also this continuing opening up to foreign investors, what's your longer-term outlook for the Chinese auto market?
Well, this all depends on the economy. Right now, there's a softening. And what we do here in the U.S. is we have a lot of incentives. When those incentives go away, sales tend to drop off. So the government may have to get involved because their economy is quite different than that of here in the U.S. If the government gets involved to offer incentives to purchase electric vehicles, consumers will then go back and purchase those vehicles. The market for vehicles in the U.S. versus China is completely different. We'll own a vehicle for 3 years, we'll get rid of it off of a lease or sell it after 5 to 10 years, where in China, those vehicles stay within the family. So they'll buy the vehicle, they'll use the vehicle, they'll pass it down to another family member. So the used car market is very slim. So you're watching vehicles once they're taken into a family, they tend to stay there. So this is going to be a big impact that at some point people will not be able to afford that many vehicles, and those that want vehicles will be able to get them. So they're going to have to figure out a way to create a used car marketplace, which I think will definitely help the Chinese auto industry.
Certainly worth keeping in mind. Thank you so much to automotive expert Lauren Fix, also known as the Car Coach.